We're going to refer to page 8W-30-22, and this is for our engine here, the 5.2 liter. We're going automatic shutdown relay, and we're going over, and this is our dark green orange, and it comes down, and then this is going to feed all of our injectors. Now we know that it's a fuel issue. We've changed the pump. That should have alleviated the fuel pressure problem. We know it's pumping fuel. So now it's the delivery to the cylinders that's in question. So these two splices here, that comes down, there's a splice here and a splice there. And basically this is going to be one side of the engine and the other side of the engine. As you can see, we got 2, 4, 6, 8. And over here we got 1, 3, 5, 7. That's going to be in this run of wires here. So each one of these injectors is going to come in. It's going to splice into somewhere in there. That's where our splice is on this side. The wiring should go around the back and come over here. And when it comes back around over here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And all of those wires going into those injectors will be joined somewhere in that wiring system in there. What I did was I found some repairs here, so that's been soldered. Might be hard to see, but there's also damage on the wire on there. This is where this one was connected into here on this one. Took a look over here, and actually underneath this there's a rub on that wire there. With a visual inspection, we've got at least 3 injectors where we've got an opening to the wire. Now when we get back to this page here, my thought was I wanted to target these injectors, but we already know that we don't have any power going to our dark green and orange. That's what we've tested over and over again with the relay, and that dark green orange has to feed these as well as the fuel pump. If we go to this page here, 8W-30-10, this is our fuel pump relay, and we're taking a look down, and we got our fuel pump. And what I'm concerned with is all this kind of business over here, right? So we've got our dark green white, which we traced, and then that goes to our fuel pump, and then goes down to ground here. We take a look here, and we got our light blue black. So this goes to low fuel sense. And it looks like that could be connected over here to the fuel pump relay control, which then goes back up to our dark blue, which could be this one here. Now we know that our orange is the switch power on. We don't have a problem there. We seem to have a problem with this one though, which isn't engaging over to get our dark green white power to the pump. Now if we go this way, we're taking a look here. We got black, light blue, and it goes through and it gets spliced into here and it comes down, and for some reason it's connected to the battery temperature sensor. Not really worried about that because that leg isn't, you know, that's off. As long as this leg is good here, that's what we're worried about. So it comes down, and then we've got this here, black, light blue. Here's our splice S135. And then it would go again to our power control module, and that is the sensor ground. Could there be a problem with this leg? That's another thing to look into. Refer you to 8W-30-9. Now this is back to where I said it all starts and ends with the automatic shutdown relay. We've time and time again proved that we have our power to our fuses, but our problem is that dark green orange. It's not switching over and it's not engaging to give us our power, right? Power goes down. That's going to be the power that ends up feeding the fuel injectors. It's also should be the power that ends up feeding the fuel pump as well, or fuel pump relay. What I'm looking at is here's our constant power in here, right? Here's our red, yellow. That's our constant that comes in. Now we know we have power in because we've checked that with the light, and it proved good on the back of the automatic shutdown relay. So, but if we trace it down, here it goes to our power control module there. And I guess I should add, it all starts with fuse 20. Fuse 20 comes down, splices there, goes to the automatic shutdown relay, and then it's going to our power control module right there. We hook up our power, and I've got keyed on inside there. And we want to check our fuse 20. We got our power to that. There's where the fuse is. Fuse is good. And then so it goes to the fuse as well as our relay. Now if we trace that up, we follow our wiring up, we're going to find that here's where the splice is. Here's the single wire, here's the other two. One goes to the relay, and the heavier one here is going to go to that fuse. So we check that, that's all good. Where does this wire here go? Here's our connection point, C131. So this is our C140 with the powertrain control module. There's our 131. There is our splice. That's our connection where it goes both to the relay and to the fuse. So where is C131? If we follow all this wire that comes from the power control module, and we're going to follow it down, then it's going to inevitably come to this plug here, which is our C131. If we look in there, that is our yellow and red wire. Yellow and red wire will connect to that plug there. But we have power to there, right? So that is from the battery to the power control module to those two wires. It's coming up. Both of them actually end up going to this connection. This gets plugged into there. That plug, once it's plugged in, goes in, and it goes into our ECM, our computer, in here. So what I'll do is I'm going to plug that in, and then we're going to probe the wire off of that one. We've confirmed our power from our fuse and our relay to here to C131. Now that is going to end up going into C140, and that's where we're going to test it now. The black plug is our C140, which is plugging into there on the computer. And when we probe that, we got our power. We've proved that we have our power from the battery to the computer. Now, after we've proved our red and yellow, now what I'm doing is I'm looking for our dark green and orange. So the power goes into the computer, now it has to come out. So that's plug C142. Now when we take a look here, it's coming up and it says we got to go to splice 1, 2, 3, and then it connects here. Now this is the problem spot here because it's not engaging to hit our power output. We take a look at 8W-70-10. Here is our wiring for that, and here's our splice 1, 2, 3. The first thing I'm looking at is the automatic shutdown relay. This is going to be the dark green orange coming off of the relay, and then it comes to the splice. And then it goes to the control. And it also goes to our C131. The interesting thing is that it says that it splices into the C144. C144 is supposed to go to the generator. When we look at this page here, this is where it's saying that we got C144, which is a black plug, and it's going to be underneath our fuse box, right by the battery there. Now when I look in here, that is the only plug that I can find that's underneath the fuse box, and it does make sense because it looks like it comes off the wiring, which does go to the alternator. But if we follow the line, at the end here, we do not see a dark green orange wire. This one here is a solid dark green. Dark green, light green. There is no dark green orange. So that is the first problem that I found in the wiring schematic for the orange and dark green wire. Those two wires that we're talking about, there are the ones that are coming off of the relay right there. Now the two wires that are coming off of the relay right there, if we follow those, one of them goes to our plug 142, which is the gray plug that goes into our computer down there. The other wire, so that goes this way, and the other wire goes in that way, and you follow that one, it's gonna go to plug 131, and plug 131 comes up, and here's 131 here. If you look real close, it ends up being the green and orange that's beside our other wire that we just chased down. So those are the two in, and those are the two out. And back to our page here. So in C131, out C131 goes to those two banks that we referred to earlier, which is then going to go to all of our fuel injectors. So we've chased down those two legs of the wiring. We already know that our orange wire is good because that proved good with the test light. So what we need to do is we need to chase down this pink and white. And this should be our problem here. This is the one that isn't engaging in order to have this come over and feed our fuel injectors as I see it. So we need to take a look at this one. Next, we're going to check this leg here, which is our light blue black. We're going to go from basically our connection right off the pump there, C315, and we're going to chase it back this way. As we look at this leg here, we get into some more confusion again because C315 is right off of the fuel pump, and as we're coming down, it's saying C305 and C235 until finally we get to our C142, which is at the power control module. So I'm going to show you in the vehicle what I'm testing and where I'm at. Okay, so inside the vehicle, I've pulled that plug back in. That's what's plugging into our fuel pump. I've got my little thin wire connector so I can check for resistance to make sure that the wire is good. There's no break in the wire. So I'm going to check it from there. And then, of course, the wiring goes and comes along here and keeps going and around and over. And I get to this plug here. Now, if you remember, we had some confusion once before when we were checking our green-white wire where the information we were looking at had kind of sent us down the wrong path and had us looking at one of these plugs under here, or what was supposed to be. This is the same plug that has that green and white wire, which then again also goes down to our fuel pump. And in this case here, we're going to check that light blue black wire right on the end. I just got that alligator clip on the pin there, and I'm going to check for continuity or resistance to make sure that we have power from this end to that end. And it looks like we're at around 0.5, which is good. Lowest reading I've received so far is about a 0.3. Usually 0.3, 0.4 is where we're at. So I'm satisfied with that. That tells us that this part of the wiring is good. So now what we need to do is we need to check from the other end of the wiring. So there's our plug there. That's what it plugs into. It goes through the firewall, and from there it's going to go to the computer. It's going to come in from behind on the firewall there. The wiring comes down in behind the jug there. As we follow that along, comes down over. It's coming through here, and likely this is our wire that we're looking for right there. Could very well be. Then it goes in behind the bumper here, and then back again. It's going to come in around the battery here, up, and here we are here. As we look there, we went from C315, and then it says it's going to C305 and C235. If we take a look over here on 8W-80-38, we see that we're looking at plug C235. And that's what it looks like right there. Now, this says that it's black when in fact it's gray. And if we take a look at pin 9, that looks like that pans out properly. So that information is correct, but this is the plug, and as far as I can tell, there is no plug that goes in between those two. That would mean that there's going to be this plug here, C305, that goes in between the fuel pump plug and the one we just checked. And as you've seen, we just checked in there, and there is no other plug that I'm aware of that runs that stretch of wire on the floor of the vehicle there. And if we're going to look into it further, it's basically saying on page 8W-80-46 that this is our plug C305, and that's what it looks like, and it says that that one's black. Checking that light blue wire from this connector here. It's going to go through the firewall, and I got that kind of connected, and then I got an alligator clip on here holding that, and then the wire goes over to the other plug-in. I got that wire come up, got connected there with the alligator clips. It's coming over, and we got it over here so we can check for our resistance or continuity. So we're progressively checking for resistance on this light blue and black wire all the way from this plug all the way back to the plug that goes into the fuel pump. So we've started there, and that's with our plug plugged in here, and this is our wire right here. You can see the light blue and black on top and the bottom, and we're following that through. We get it to the plug. I got my little connector in there to test this out. So we've proved that one. That has got a good continuity or resistance from the plug to the pump to the computer. Now the next one we want to check out is we want to check out that brown and yellow. Interesting, now it doesn't say that in the book. In the book it says it's a black with a light blue stripe. So we're going to take from this plug, we go back to this plug, which is not described in the manual. It lists a different plug again, so that's some confusion there. We check the bottom plug here. This is our brown and yellow, and then we move up, and then that's where it connects to that black and light blue, as per what the book says. Confusing fact is that this is the wrong plug identified, and also they have another plug in between identified that doesn't exist. But we're going to follow through, and this goes through the firewall again. So we've come through the firewall here. Now what we need to know is it actually splits off here. So we've got one to our plug inside that gray one, which is C235, and then we've got another one right here that's going through this large bundle of wires, which I haven't yet identified on the other side of the firewall. But if we follow it through, there's two wires here. You see the two wires? So that's where it splits off into the cab, and it comes down through to the front here. I've taped it again here to indicate we've got two wires all the way down. We keep tracing it. It goes in. It comes this way and keeps going. And this is where you're going to see where the two get connected there, and they get connected here. So there's two in, two out on this connection. And then as we go up, there's one that's going to go to our plug C131, which is this black plug here. And the other one goes to our battery temperature sensor. Here we are at 8W-30-10. This is back to our original drawing. We've proved that we do not have a black and light blue coming off of the pumped connection C305. That is brown and yellow. And then it continues all the way until it gets to C234. And then that is where it switches to the black and light blue. And then we're coming down, and this is where it splits off, as we said, to plug C131. And then it splits off this way to the battery temperature sensor. So we've proved all that wiring there. Right here, we're probing that brown and yellow wire. As it goes, it ends up connecting on here. We've got brown and yellow, and then on the other end, we've got black and blue. On the other end here with the plug, we end up, there's where we trace out that black and blue. So we're going to check the resistance all the way back from that fuel pump plug to this plug, just to make sure everything's good. And we have our probe here right from the back, comes to the meter. We're just gonna probe this one here, and we're gonna look for reading. So we'll probe that now. And we see that that line is good too. So at this stage of the game, we have proved everything. We know our ground is good because our pump is working. We trace this wire down, our black and light blue. We've got it down to C131. We've traced this wire down. That was our light blue and black. We've proved that. So now we got to go past C131 and into here. That's going to refer us to 8W-70-15. So here we are, and as we take a look, this is our splice, this is our C131, comes in here. So we got to go to splice S135, and then from S135 we got to go to S136, and that asterisk is telling us that's for our engine, the 5.2 liter engine only. And when we take a look at this page here, this is telling us that our S135 is over by the distributor at the back end of the engine. And then if we want to find our S136, that's going to be on the driver's side of the engine, driver's side of the throttle body, I guess you'd say. Here's our plug here. You trace that down, goes into the big spot. Right there's our tee off. That's where it's showing the one splice. And then somewhere over on this side is where that other splice is, the 136. Now I don't know if that's going to be in there, or I don't know what's going to be scattered throughout this run of wire here as it goes to all these different components. We get back to this page here, and these are all the components that that wire is going to. We got downstream heat oxygen sensor, we've got vehicle speed sensor. This is back to the fuse box, transmission solenoid assembly, upstream heat oxygen sensor, crankshaft position sensor, which we've checked, manifold absolute pressure, which we've also checked should be good, engine coolant temperature sensor, camshaft position sensor, intake air temperature sensor, throttle position sensor. We can exclude these two here because those are being listed for the 4-liter engine. And oil pressure sensor. That is a lot of stuff that we got to check and find out whether or not we got a brake that's not, like, it's not making it to the splice, which is going to multiple things, or if it's a couple of individual things here that are compromised. We're going to start off with our MAP sensor, mass air pressure. So we've unplugged that. We find our black-blue wire. We're going to probe that. I'm going to check for resistance there. We're checking from this side of the plug. We've proved that side of the plug. So we're going to do all our checks from this side of the plug to the sensors. We're going to check our reading here. And we can say that that one's good. This one here's throttle position sensor. We got that connected to the black-blue wire. Going to our plug again. We'll check that one now. And we can see that one's good. Next is the cam position sensor. Black-blue wire to our plug here. We'll check that now. And we see that one's good. Next is the crank position sensor, center wire. That's going to be the black and blue. Going to our plug there. Check our reading there. We see that one's good. In the back down there beside the distributor, that's the oil pressure sensor. So we're checking that one now. There's the plug. Checking that black blue wire. Again, going to our plug over here. So we'll check that resistance. And we see that one's good. This is the upstream O2 sensor. This one would be closest to the engine, and then the downstream would be furthest from the engine. So we've got it clipped onto that black blue wire, and we've got it run up to the top so we can check the resistance on that one. There's our connection there, running along, clamp to our lead, back to the meter here, and then we're gonna check our plug. We'll check that reading there. And we see that one's good. This is the downstream O2 sensor. This one's closest to the muffler here. So again, we're gonna be checking that blue and black wire. We have our connection running back to our test lead here, back to the meter, and we'll check the resistance on this one. And we can see that one's good. This is the vehicle speed sensor on the back of the transfer case here. Again, we're checking the blue and black wire. Again, we're running that back to our test lead here, to the meter, and from our plug. We'll test the resistance on that one. And that one's good. As it's illustrated in the book here, we've got our C140 connection, and then it's going to be A4, and then it's going to go to that splice there, which then goes to our C131. So we are testing from C131 to our C140. That's what we have illustrated here. We have our C131 there, and we have our C140 here, and that is pin number 4. So we're going to check for our resistance on this one, and we see that one's good. This plug here connects to the top of the transmission, and this is going to be our transmission solenoid, and that's going to be the black and blue wire again, and we're going to go back to that plug, and we're going to check the resistance on this one. Again, we've got our string of connections coming up to our lead, to our meter here. And this is going to be our plug. So we're going to check the resistance on that. Let's see what our reading is here. And we can see that that one's good. Hard to see, but that's the temperature sensor, and it's down in there behind the top rad hose on the intake manifold there. So we pull out our connector here. We're gonna check that blue and black wire there again from our C131. And we'll check our reading on that one. And we see that one's good. So the last sensor to check here is this is our intake air temperature off of the intake manifold right on the corner here. And so here's our pigtail for that. Again, the black and blue wire to our C131 plug. And we will check our continuity on, or our resistance on that one. And we can see that's good. So we have now proved all of the multiple connections from that black blue wire and everything that it goes to. Everything there is good from plug in to plug end.